Hi, I'm Dan with Cali, and today we're going to show you how to install rock sliders on the 4th Gen short bed Tacoma. So for hardware, you're going to need is 5 washer plates, 1 snap nut plate with the 1/2-inch snap nut, 5 lock nuts, 11 1/2-inch washers, 6 1/2-inch bolts, 20 M10s with 20 washers. So if you're going to be installing this on a hybrid truck, you're going to be using 2 less of the 1/2-inch hardware. As far as tools that you'll need a M12, M17, and a 3/4-inch socket with a ratchet wrench, as well as a 3/4-inch box end wrench. So today we're going to be installing the Step Edition rock sliders. Before you get started, you're going to want to install the filler plate and all the hardware associated with this slider before you install the rock slider. If you're using the Trail Edition, you can go ahead and start installing. First thing you're going to do is going to remove all of the grounds on the passenger side of the frame, and then we're going to be popping out all of the plastic filler plates for the frame. Here is the front ground wire. We're going to be using our M12 to loosen this bolt. Once the ground has been unbolted, you're going to take the ground itself and put it on top of your frame to keep it out of the way. So before you put your rock sliders on, you're going to want to set them up as close to the frame as possible. We're using our lift today, but you can use jack stands, boxes, whatever you want. We're going to start with our M10s, and we're going to start from the front and we'll loosely thread them and go all the way back. Next, we're going to be removing the plastic filler plates in the frame. If you have a hybrid, you can go ahead and leave this front plug closed. And then you're going to be removing these 2. If you have a non-hybrid, you're going to be removing all 3 plates. And then you can poke either a screwdriver through to undo the ones on the backside. So now we're going to be installing 3 M10 bolts into this rear plate, into these 3 threaded holes. You're going to have to maneuver the rock slider around to get these holes to line up. And remember, lightly thread each bolt. Next, we're going to go ahead and install the M10 bolts into these 2 holes. And if you have a plate that holds a hole in this top right corner, you can ignore that. Next, we're going to install 3 more M10s into these 3 holes. Next, we'll be installing 3 1/2-inch bolts. We've got the 2 shorter ones that'll go on the back side of the frame and a long one that goes in the front. If you're installing a hybrid rock slider like we are, you can go ahead and leave out the longer 1/2-inch bolt. So next, we're going to go ahead and install the 1/2-inch bolt in the rear plate here, the second to rear plate. And we're going to need to install our snap nut into the snap plate. You're going to place your hand on the back side and slide it up as close as you can and thread it in. So now that we're at the second and front plate, we're going to go ahead and install the second short 1/2-inch bolt through here using a plate washer and a lock nut. Next, we would be installing the 1/2-inch bolt through this hole, but since this is a hybrid, there's a cross member here that's blocking our way, so you can go ahead and ignore it. So we're gonna go ahead and tighten up all of the M10s and the 1/2-inch bolts. We're gonna start with the front with those 2 bottom bolts, and then we're gonna work our way to the rear and make sure that the slider is level with the truck. Now that all of the bolts are nice and tight, we're gonna go ahead and reinstall the ground wires to the frame. Now that we've finished the passenger side, we're gonna go ahead and get started on the driver's side. If your Tacoma has this wiring harness, you're gonna just pop these grommets out and push it up out of the way. Now, before you start putting the rock slider into place, remember to remove the plastic tabs in the frame for your 1/2-inch bolts. So just like the passenger, we're gonna go ahead and start with these 2 front bolts. Lightly thread them in, 1 or 2 threads, or 1 or 2 turns, and we're gonna move on to the back plate. Now we've moved to the back side of the Tacoma, we're gonna go ahead and lift this plate up to these threaded holes and lightly thread those bolts in place. Next, we are going to be doing the second to last plate, and we're going to be putting in the bolts into these 2 holes. Lastly, we're going to be mounting the bolts through this second to front plate into these 3 holes. Next, we're going to be installing the 1/2-inch bolts into the side plates. And remember, if you are using this on a hybrid, this first plate won't use it because that cross member is in the way, but the other 2 will be used. So we're going to be using the longer 1/2-inch bolt with a washer plate. Don't forget to put your washer on the 1/2-inch bolt. We're going to slide it through, put our washer plate on, and then lightly thread the lock nut. Again, we're going to be using the longer 1/2-inch bolt through this hole, using our plate washer on the back side. If you're installing this on a non-hybrid, you're going to go ahead and install the 1/2-inch bolt on this side, and then a washer plate on the back side. Now that everything is in place, we're going to go ahead and tighten up all the bolts. We're going to start with the 2 in the front, the 3 in the rear, and then move from the rear to the front. Now that the slider is all tightened up and ready to go, if you are worried about your wiring harness moving around too much, you can pull it down on top of the rock slider and zip tie it to it, or you can zip tie it to the frame itself. So that's how you install the rock sliders on the short bed 4th Gen Tacoma. Please don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe on our YouTube channel, as well as visiting CaliRaisedLED.com.